What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Make It Custom. I'm Karl Fisher, and today's a special day. Today we are posting the Metal Reborn documentary and all the shorts on the channel right here for you to watch, obviously because you clicked on it. But what it is a documentary made by Speedline Film Werks. These are some very passionate filmmakers. They came to me asking if we could make something together on this truck and everything that went into it and sort of tell the story of, I guess, partly my passion for fabrication, why I do this, why do I love metal so much, what do I want to do in the future. That all is in this documentary, as well as a bunch of shorts that follow the documentary. This is all filmed locally here, in Cache Creek, Ashcroft area, and it's got a really kind of dear place to me because that was its maiden voyage. The first time I hit the key and actually drove this truck, it looked a lot different than this, but I drove straight to this show, Graffiti Days in Cache Creek. So that's where all the filming happened for this documentary. I hope you guys enjoy it. Please don't forget to like, click subscribe, hit notifications. Check out metalreborn.com if you want to check out more, and Speedline Film Werks as well. They've got a great YouTube channel that has a bunch of their films on it as well. So thank you very much, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let's get into it. For some people, rust is the end of the vehicle, but for me, it's just part of the circle of life of metal. It starts out in a mountain, it gets mined, refined, and made into whatever it's going to be. And eventually, Mother Nature's going to take it back. Some people might think that's the end of the road, but I see it differently. Still has an opportunity to be reborn as something beautiful. That's where I come in. Modification has always been a part of my passion since a child. I played with Legos, I did Meccano, I did mini bikes, go-karts, dune buggies, building custom motorcycles, and then cars. I guess I love working with my hands because I get to create. I get to change the shape of metal. You can take flat sheets of metal and create beautiful shapes. You can bend tubes. You can add fire and heat it up and bend it and twist it and do whatever you want. To me, metal's an art form. It's clay to a sculptor. It's paint to a painter. Metal is something that you can create whatever you want with. I find a lot of beauty in the functionality and in the way things work, so I try to make things function but also look beautiful. The concept of this truck from the beginning was to expose everything. I wanted everybody to be able to see every inch of it that you could. You can look inside the box, see the chassis, the suspension. You can look at the engine, the whole front suspension is exposed. The entire inside of the cabin interior, all that mechanical is all exposed, and that was the whole point. I just wanted people to see, you know, how my mind works. This truck is not a practical truck, so there's no real practicality behind why I did this. This is a pure expression of creativity. I didn't put any decorations on this truck. Every part has a purpose, every part has a function, but the functions of these parts maybe had no place on the truck. That's what's interesting to me is repurposing pieces from things that don't really belong. That's what makes this truck unique. Sometimes I'll be driving and I'll see, you know, abandoned vehicles in fields or, you know, rusty vehicles that have been shot up. And they're just kind of left there to rust away and that's their final resting place. But for some of them, they can still have a new life. I get excited. I think, what could it be? Is it in good enough shape? Has the rust fully taken it? Or is it still salvageable? That's when I get excited.
Yes! We got it!
I mean, I'm always looking for the perfect piece. You never know when you're gonna find it. It could be at a garage sale, it could be in a field, it could be in a barn. It could be anywhere, but once you see it, you sort of know. That's the feeling that I can't get enough of. I'll get inspired by a piece of metal. It could be anything, it could be from anything, but just by seeing it, maybe how it's made or what it's from, that will spark the creativity for me to give it a new life. One of the interesting parts on there is speedboat exhaust manifolds. They're meant to have water running through them, like pumped through from the lake. You never see them on a car. But I've modified them in such a way that they could accept the amount of heat that engine produces. And now I've got one-off manifolds that everybody freaks out. The taillights on this thing are 100-year-old trolley lights. The headlights are from a tractor. The coilovers are from a race car. Hydraulics are from lowriders. Front axle's from a Chevy P10 van. The front brakes are 62 Lincoln. The wheels are from Chevy Astro van, spare tires from all-wheel drive only. Doors are fully custom, door panels themselves, all made from scratch. So the choke lever is a bronze throttle lever from an antique boat. And so I just reshaped it and made it into something awesome. Seatbelts in the truck, they're P-51 Mustang seatbelts. They're like a Warbird aircraft seatbelt. The coolest seatbelts you can get. The e-brake handle on there is actually a set of brass knuckles. The shifter is a Buddha statue from Singapore. The gauges are vintage Stuart Warner racing gauges. They actually have no backlights in them. The gas pedal rollers for your foot are actually from a grandfather clock. The brake pedal pad and the clutch pedal pad are meat tenderizers. The tailgate itself is made 100% from scratch. Ford, Chevy, Dodge, doesn't matter, it's a Japhan's truck now. Why do I build custom cars? I build custom cars because it's the most fun way to express myself. That's why, I did gasoline-injected flamethrowers. That's why I burned the shit out of my tires. That's why we build crazy cool cars, is so that we can do crazy cool things. You're spinning your tires and being in control, but out of control. That's the sauce, man. That fires me up. It's how I blow off steam and how I like to roll my vehicles. I just get, smiles for miles from that kind of shit. Everything I build, it's an expression and an extension of myself and my personality, my knowledge, my life's experience. And all I want to do in my life is learn every way that I can talk to metal. I can change the way that it looks, I can change the way that it feels, and I can change what it becomes. It's just a thing of beauty to me. I'm just gonna live my life expressing it through metal. When I was young, my immediate answer was I was gonna be an inventor when I grew up. I got started when I was really young, like when I was probably 5 years old. I was taking apart electronics. I always loved ripping stuff apart and figuring out how they worked. I guess it just kind of progressed. Like I was always building little models and trying to put motors on them and trying to figure out what the different components of circuit boards were and just ruining my own toys, I remember I came home from school one day and my dad built a workshop in my closet. Like you open up my closet doors, there's a workbench with pegboard and some tools, and I spent hours and hours and hours in there. My dad he was fully supportive of anything I wanted to try and do. If you fail, just keep going. If you fall down, get up. That's kind of the attitude that I always got from my parents. I remember getting into trouble. Instead of taking away video games, they'd take away my soldering iron. like my glue gun. They'd be like, you lost your glue gun privileges. So the first motorized vehicle I built was I was 10 years old, and me and my dad built an electric mini bike together. We got a car battery and an electric starter motor, and duct taped it. It was pretty fast. Like it was a little bit scary. It was one speed. You had to take your hand off the handlebars and turn a key switch to turn it on. And electric starter motor was like right now. So 0 to 60 right now. It was an amazing feeling to ride something that we had built. So that definitely got me hooked onto building motorized vehicles for sure. And then in grade 9, I started building a bar stool racer. It was just a tiny version of a go-kart with a bar stool on top. That was the first metalwork experience that I had, where I got to weld, I got to cut metal, and I definitely fell in love with metal at a young age. 14 years old, I was hooked. My very first car, I had not even loved hot rods yet. I just wanted to have a car that was as fun as my go-karts were. So a Manx dune buggy was the obvious choice, and it needed everything. So it ended up being full restoration, full customization. We changed absolutely every part on it. We ended up building like a 1914cc motor. It was, pretty fast. It pulled the wheels in second gear. Yeah, it was just a gnarly vehicle. So in 2010, I had just started a new job building custom motorcycles. It was really nerve-wracking. I'd never built a custom motorcycle before, but I was, pretty confident in fabrication. And I was just kind of thrown to the flame, and I was the only fabricator at this custom motorcycle shop all of a sudden with zero experience. So I learned a lot really quickly. Knuckle dragger was definitely like the highlight of my custom motorcycle career. It was, everything I had, we got to put into this bike. I definitely attest a lot of my progression in this industry to what I learned from building custom motorcycles. I struggled as a young person to find the knowledge to pursue this passion. And I feel like with social media and YouTube, we have the platform to share our knowledge. And that's something that I use all the time. So now I'm starting to upload videos of myself sharing knowledge so that people like my younger self can learn. Not only the knowledge, but the tooling. Some of the tooling is pretty unobtainable. So one of my next ventures is building tools to sell. I've got a couple of designs that I think are going to be, really helpful to our industry. And that's the future of Japhans for me, is just to try and share the knowledge and keep this industry alive. There's always a place to grow. I want to just continue on this path until I'm dead, and I'll never be the best in the world, but there's no ceiling. The ceiling's constantly being raised, so there's no plateau. To me, metal's an art form. It's a craft. It's something that you can create whatever you want with. Metal to me it's a medium. It's like clay to a sculptor. It's like, canvas to a painter. Every metal kind of has its own set of properties, its own characteristics, its own thing that makes it beautiful. Knowing those different characteristics and working with them is the art form. Choosing your material, your medium to be a certain part or to be a certain piece, that's where your creativity can guide you. Every kind of metal that I work with is a little bit different from one another. Stainless is timeless to me because it resists all corrosion. Aluminum has like a warm shine when you polish it, but it gets powdery. It's usually a soft metal. But brass is really awesome to work with. You can B-roll it like the tailgate, you can shape it like the door handles, you can cast it. It's just such a cool metal. It's got this beautiful gold glow when it's polished. Brass is my favorite because of how it reacts to people touching it or the weather. It can just take whatever you throw at it and just look better every time. Each piece of metal has its place, so working with different metals kind of gives a vehicle a bit of a soul. Metalworking is an art form, and for me, vehicles are the canvas. I love swap meets. I love finding parts in people's yards. Like, I've driven by people's houses and seen junk and just like knocked on the door because you never know what you're gonna find or who's gonna let something go. I've got a friend, he's a collector like me. He's got way more junk than I do, and I love going to his place because I can always, find a little something. So he's got this wall and it's covered in little brass trinkets from who knows what. There were these little pulleys on his wall and they'd come from a grandfather clock. And I looked at them and I kept looking at them. I didn't know what I wanted it for, but I wanted them. He saw that I liked them, so he gave them to me, and they made their way onto my gas pedal. I'm always looking for the perfect piece. You never know when you're gonna find it. The craziest thing that I saw in Cache Creek was we got a hot tip from a buddy where there's a bunch of cars laying on this mountainside in the canyon. So we got there, and there's all these beautiful rusty relics laying on this mountainside, and I'm stumbling across, 30s cars, 40s cars, and I couldn't believe my eyes when I found my truck cab sitting there. These cover panels, these are where my switches are in my truck. I didn't have those panels, so I had to make them, but there they are. I'm getting goosebumps right now just thinking about it, because there's actually a piece inside that truck cab that I needed for mine. The entire time I've been building this truck, I've needed this back window garnish molding, and there it was in this cab on the side of the mountain in Cache Creek. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get this out with a screwdriver, but every road trip, every junkyard in America, I've called them trying to find this one piece, and here it is. You stumble across it in Cache Creek.
Oh, yes! We got it!
We're out of here. It was just super cool to see my truck cab sitting there. Somebody else could find that thing and still build it. It was in better shape than mine when I found that one. So, I kind of wish I found it sooner. Sometimes I find pieces that are just so cool that I just can't live without it. I don't know what it's gonna be on, but once you see it, you sort of know. I've got stuff just kind of squirreled away just because those pieces inspired me. There might not be anything ever, but those pieces are what inspires me to build. Those pieces are what made that truck. This truck is what I've been wanting to build since I was 16 years old. It's a 1938 Dodge pickup. It's taken me 10 years, and it's still not done. I was obsessed with this style of, the proportion of this truck is something that I had seen before or close to. I drew it a bunch of times and actually tried building it a couple of times and just never finished it. In one of the cases, my skills had progressed a bit and I just hated everything I had done. I came back to it in 2010. There was a rusty cab sitting on Craigslist for I think $150. It had flowers growing out of it. It was garbage, I had no money, but I had the desire to build a truck, so that's what I started with. The next part of that was me building a frame. I knew the proportions I wanted to see, so I built the chassis from that. Just started collecting parts. I knew what I needed, and I would take anything that was close because I knew I could modify it to be what I wanted it to be. An old shop I used to rent, we had used the box from my previous build that got disbanded as a fire pit. I went back there and it was still there, so I took it out of the weeds and that was the box. The cab is like a 38 Dodge cab. The box is actually a 37 Chevy box. It was blue and different shades of green, and the cab was red with shades of black. I drove it around like that for a little while, but it never really went together. But once we stripped it down with acid, now they look the same. The box had these black scars where rust happened and scrapes happened, and so does the Dodge. Now they look like they're meant to be together once they're stripped down to bare metal. The whole premise behind this thing is I want it to be as raw and honest as it can be. I didn't put any decorations on this truck. Every part has a purpose, every part has a function. I removed the dash, The gauges are mounted into a small thin aluminum panel. There's not a whole lot of room for parts on the vehicle, so my brake pedal and my clutch pedal share a fulcrum, and now my clutch master cylinder and my brake master cylinder are on my transmission tunnel, so they're all fully visible. the floor, the bottom 6 inches just did not exist when I got it. So chassis hand built, the suspension's hand built, but most of that entire truck is handmade. I find a lot of beauty in the functionality and in the way things work. So I try to make things function, but also what I struggled with the most on this car is the radiator setup. To keep the engine cool, it's a high compression motor, it runs pretty hot. And for the first year or two, we were running it pretty hot. My favorite thing about this truck is probably the flamethrowers, I guess, because we just roll around town and shoot flames and people freak out about it, and it's kind of fun. The most common reaction I get is, can you even drive that? And yeah, I can. With custom cars, everything's made from nothing, so something has the potential to go wrong, and it totally did. The flamethrowers worked perfectly. I just, a gas leak plus flamethrowers equals, catastrophe. The truck caught on fire. I thought that, there's quick flashes of like, is it gonna burn down? Like, am I gonna be able to put this thing out? It caught on fire because one of the fittings for my fuel line, I guess, came a little bit loose.
That's my fuel line.
Just started pouring gas while we were trying to, pump the flamethrowers, and it caught on fire.
That gets the heart going up.
Just a little bit.
I guess I just didn't crank it tight enough, and it was fine for years, and then, wasn't fine that day. It was a scary moment seeing it on fire, but thank God it's still here. We were cruising at about 2,000 RPM, and in third gear, just, no load on flat ground, everything was peachy, the sun was shining, and like that's the sound it made. It just went, and nothing. No ignition, no spark, nothing. I didn't really know what happened. I've never had any vehicle do that to me before, so it was kind of a question in my mind whether or not we killed it and killed our plans to go to Cache Creek in the next couple of days. If the motor fully popped, it was something that needed machining and had to be fully blown apart, our goose was cooked. I had high hopes though that it could be something easily fixable, but not without a ton of work.
That's it for today.
What had happened was that the distributor gear, I guess, went under a bunch of load. I was trying to get by without shifting, and so I was in first gear and I just revved it too far. I must have gone up the valve float so that there was a bunch of friction on the cam and the gear that rides on the distributor.
I'm pretty sure I blew a head gasket. Leaking oil.
It also, I guess, created a bunch of compression at that time and popped the head gasket as well and crapped a little bit of oil out of there. So I was terrified of that too, seeing oil everywhere. That's, that's never a good sign.
Well, we got some motor work to do, I guess.
We pulled it all apart, found the distributor gear got munched and skipped a tooth. Timing was off. That's why it didn't run anymore. After finding the gear, reassembling it with all new gaskets, new oil, everything was fine, and we were on our way.
She's healthy, and she's happy.
In Cache Creek, we were launching the truck a bunch, and we were on some pretty sticky ground, and I didn't build it as a drag racer. It's taken all the abuse up until this point. I've been building this for 10 years, so 10 years ago I wasn't as good as I am now. Looking back on it, I made a mistake when I built the trailing arm setup. The way that I attached the rear end to the trailing arms, I sleeved a threaded bung within a tube, and I fully welded around the top, but I didn't plug weld the sides. We launched the truck a few times and it started hopping, and I was like, what the hell is that? I looked back and my rear end is doing this, and it's a terrible sign. It actually ripped all my bungs right out of those tubes. The only thing keeping the rear end from fully rotating around and pulling the drive shaft out of the transmission was the coilovers binding on the rear end. So ruined the drive shaft, it ripped the suspension arms right off of the rear end. Thankfully, we had a friend in Cache Creek that had a welder, and I ratchet strapped the rear end to the chassis, and we drove it this high off the ground to Buddy's place, jacked it up, welded it up, and we were back on the road. The drive shaft held out for the rest of the trip and until this day. I swear I could build stuff, okay? I'm not afraid of losing it. If some woman in a stroller, their baby comes near it, I don't care. Just smash it with the stroller. Just make sure your kid doesn't die. I mean, I'm not holding back with this truck at all. It's built to take abuse, and I'm just gonna do whatever I want with it, and that's its life.